Good morning everyone. This is class 12th subject chemistry chapter 5 lecture number 4. In this lecture I will be covering refining methods and uses of aluminium, copper and iron. And in the end of this lecture I will be discussing the homework that I gave you in lecture number 3. So let's start with refining methods. So the metals obtained by any of the methods discussed above, that is either extraction of iron from its oxide or extraction of copper from its oxide, or the extraction by oxidation and reduction method, or by using electrochemical principles of metallurgy, all above are still impure and hence are called crude metals. And the process of purifying the crude metal is called refining. So what is refining? Refining is the process of purifying the crude metal, that is refining. And in refining we have different method. Now in this lecture I will be discussing distillation method for refining, liquefaction, electrolysis, zone refining, then vapor phase refining and chromatographic methods. These are the methods by which we can purify our crude metal. So first start with distillation method. This method is employed for the purification of metals like zinc and mercury. In this method, the impure metal is heated and the vapors are condensed in a separate receiver. From here, we can collect the pure metal and the impurities are left behind because of higher boiling point. So this distillation method is used for the purification of zinc and mercury, and in this method impure metal is heated and the vapors are condensed in a separate container. From here we can collect our pure metal and the impurities are left behind in the container. Next method is liquefaction. So liquefaction method is used for the purification of metals like tin. Now this method is based on principle that melting points of the metals are lower than those of the impurities. Means when we heat the impure metal, first our pure metal will melt, after that impurities will melt. Means there is a difference in the melting point of pure metal and the impurities. And in this method we will purify those metals which have lower melting point as compared to impurities present in crude metal. Now what we will do in liquefaction method, this is our impure metal. Now when we heat this impure metal, what will happen? The metals which have lower boiling point than impurities will melt and flows down into the receiver, leaving the impurities on this hearth. Means what will happen when we heat this impure metal, the metal will melt first and here the pure metal is collected, whereas the impurities will remain on the surface, and by this method we can purify our metal. So this liquefaction method is used for those metals whose melting points are lower than those of the impurities present in that. Next method is electrolytic refining. So by this method we can purify copper, silver, gold, lead, aluminium and zinc. Now in this method the impure metal is made to act as anode and a strip of the same metal in pure form is used as a cathode. For example, if we want to purify the impure copper, so what we will do, anode is made up of impure copper and cathode is made up of pure copper, and here we are using electrolytic solution which contains the same metal as we want to purify. For example, in this case the anode is made up of impure copper, the cathode is made up of pure copper, and this electrolytic solution contains copper ions, that is here we are using acidified copper sulfate solution. Now when the electrolysis will takes place, what will happen? At anode, this copper, it will lose 2 electron and convert in the form of copper plus 2 electrons. Whereas at cathode, Cu plus 2 ions, they will accept 2 electron and convert to copper. Now this copper is pure form, that is the copper which is deposited at cathode is the pure copper. Now generally what happens, this impure copper contains some impurities. Now what will happen when we do the electrolysis, these ions remains in this solution, and this is known as anode mud, and this anode mud contains antimony, selenium, tellurium and many other metal ions. And one more thing, the ions which are more electropositive, they will remain in the solution, whereas the copper, pure copper, it will deposit at cathode. Now in this way we can purify our impure metal by electrolytic refining. Next method is zone refining. So the principle of zone refining is, it is based on the principle that impurities are more soluble in molten form than in solid state of the metal. It means that impurities will be more soluble in molten form and the metal will be in solid state. Now what happen in this process, the impure metal, it is converted into the rod form, and a circular mobile heater is fixed at one end of the rod of the impure metal. These are moving circular heaters, and this rod is placed in inert atmosphere to prevent the oxidation of this metal. Now what will happen, the circular heater is fixed at one end of the rod of the impure metal. Now when these heaters move, what will happen, the molten zone moves along the heater, which is moved forward, means when the heater will move, so the molten zone will move to one side, and as the heater moves forward, the pure metal crystallizes out of the melt and the impurities pass on into the adjacent molten zone. Means the molten zone contain impurities and the metal, pure metal, will be at one end of this rod. This process is repeated several times and the heater is moved in the same direction. And after that, at one end the impurities get concentrated and at the other end we have pure metal. This end is cut off. Now this method is very useful for producing semiconductors and other metals of very high purity. Means by this method we can purify our metal, that is we can get ultra pure metal by this zone refining method. Now the zone refining method is used for the purification of germanium, silicon, boron, gallium and indium. Again I am repeating, the principle of zone refining is that it is based on the principle that impurities are more soluble in melt than in solid state of the metal. Next method is vapor phase refining. So in this method the metal is converted into its volatile compound, and after that we will decompose that volatile compound to give pure metal. So in this we have two steps. First is metal should form a volatile compound with an available reagent, and second is that volatile compound should be easily decomposable. Now in vapor phase refining we have two processes. One is Mond process and second is Van Arkel method. So this Mond process is used for the purification of nickel. So what we will do in Mond process, first of all this impure nickel, it will form complex with this carbon monoxide, that is tetracarbonyl nickel. Now next step is, this is the volatile compound, and in next step we will heat this volatile compound. So again it will convert to nickel and carbon monoxide. But at this stage we are getting our pure nickel. So first step is that metal should form volatile compound, and second is this volatile compound should be easily decomposable. Next is Van Arkel method. Now this process is used for the purification of zirconium and titanium. Similarly, first of all, in case of zirconium, it will form complex with iodine, ZrI4, and in next step again the decomposition of this complex will give zirconium plus iodine. But at this stage we are getting our pure zirconium. So in vapor phase refining we have two process, Mond process. for nickel and Van Arkel method for zirconium and titanium. Next method is chromatographic method. Now the principle of chromatography is different components of a mixture are differently adsorbed on the adsorbent. The principle of chromatography is different components of a mixture are differently adsorbed on an adsorbent. That is, we have an adsorbent in case of chromatography. Now in chromatography we have two things. One is stationary phase and one is mobile phase. Now this stationary phase generally consists of solid, and in solid either we have alumina or silica, and mobile phase is liquid. Now how this method helps in the purification of metal or component. This method is generally used in organic chemistry and in inorganic chemistry for the purification of compounds. Now we will discuss what is column chromatography and how the chromatographic methods helps in the purification. Now this is our glass tube, or you can say this is our column. In this solid is our adsorbent. Example is, for example, we have taken here silica. Now the solid is our silica, and here we are taking a mixture in which we have three components A, B and C. A, B and C are such that A is strongly adsorbed on the surface of silica, B is moderately adsorbed on the surface of silica, and the C component is weakly adsorbed on the surface of the silica. Now here we have mixture A plus B plus C, and from here we are adding our mobile phase, that is liquid solvent. Now as we know that A is strongly adsorbed, so what will happen when we add solvent from the side? What will happen? This A will strongly adsorb, this B is moderately adsorbed, and this C is weakly adsorbed. That is why it lies lower in the column. So what will happen when we add solvent into this column? So the component which is weakly adsorbed, that will lie in the lower part of the column, and from this column first of all we can collect this C component because it is weakly adsorbed. So what will happen when we put our mixture? So A is strongly adsorbed, B is weakly, and C is very weakly adsorbed. So what will happen? It will come fastly from this column. So when we add our solvent from the side, what will happen? The C will come fast. After collecting C, when we add more solvent, B can be collected, and in the last A can be collected in the flask. So depending upon the adsorption power of these components, we can separate components from a mixture on the basis of adsorption power of these components. So with the help of this column we can separate component A, B and C, and that is A, B, C and B and C can be collected separately, from where if we can evaporate the solvent we will get our component A, B and C. So this is our chromatographic method by which we can separate the components and purify the components. So the principle of chromatography is different components of a mixture are differently adsorbed on an adsorbent. That is, depending upon the adsorption power, they will differently adsorbed on the surface of the adsorbent. So these are the purification method. Next topic is uses of aluminium, copper, zinc and iron. So first we will start with aluminium. So the first use is it is used as a wrapper for chocolates, and this aluminium it is also used in paints and liquors, and being reactive in nature it is also used in the extraction of chromium and manganese. Also aluminium is used as electricity conductors, and being lighter in weight it is also useful in making alloys. So these are the uses of aluminium. Next is copper. So copper it is used for making wires in electrical industry and for water and steam pipes. It is also used in several alloys, for example brass, bronze, they contains copper. Next we have zinc. Now zinc metal is used in galvanizing iron. As we have discussed in electrochemistry that if we want to protect iron from rusting, so what we will do, we will cover the iron with a layer of zinc, and that process is known as galvanization. So the zinc is used in galvanizing iron, and this is also used in making alloys. For example, brass, it contains 40% zinc and 60% copper, whereas German silver, it contains 25% of copper, zinc 25 to 30%, and nickel is 40 to 50%. And this zinc, it is also used as a reducing agent in extraction process. Now next we have iron. So in iron we have cast iron, pig iron and wrought iron. So cast iron, it is used in making stoves, gutter pipes, and it is also used in the manufacture of wrought iron, which is the purest form of iron, as well as it is also used in the manufacture of steel. And in steel, nickel steel, it is used for making cables and automobile parts. So these are the uses of these metals. Now after doing this, you can solve NCERT exercise questions 4th, 6th, question number 10th, 11th, 12th and 26th. So these questions are homework for today's class. Now I will be discussing the homework that I gave you in lecture number 3. So first question is, copper can be extracted by hydrometallurgy but not zinc. So first of all, what is hydrometallurgy? So hydrometallurgy is the process of extraction of metals by dissolving the ore in a suitable reagent, followed by precipitation or displacement of the metal by a more reactive or more electropositive metal. That is known as hydrometallurgy. Now the question is, why zinc cannot be extracted by hydrometallurgy? Now if we compare the E naught of zinc 2 positive to zinc, Fe plus 2 to Fe and copper plus 2 to copper. So the zinc plus 2 to zinc has more negative electrode potential. It means that this metal cannot be reduced, or you can say the zinc plus 2 to zinc cannot be reduced by this, because the more reactive or the metal which is more reactive, it will remains in the solution. That is why we cannot extract zinc 2 positive to zinc from these two ions. Whereas to displace zinc from the solution of zinc plus 2, more reactive metal is needed. Means if we compare these three metals, so in this we have the potential of zinc is minus 0.76. It means that among these three, this is the most reactive. So if we want to displace the Zn plus 2 into zinc, we need more reactive metal. For example, aluminium or magnesium, because the reduction potential for magnesium and aluminium is much more negative as compared to zinc. But now the problem with these metals is, when we use these metals for the reduction of zinc plus 2 to zinc, what will happen? These metals, they will react with water. That is why copper can be extracted by hydrometallurgy but not zinc. Question number 2 is, why is the extraction of copper from pyrites more difficult than that from its oxide through reduction? The question is, why is the extraction of copper pyrite is difficult as compared to its oxide? And the answer is because the delta G formation for cuprous oxide is more negative than those of CS2 and H2S. So if we want to do the reduction of cuprous sulfide, so this is the reaction, Cu2S plus H2 is giving Cu plus H2S. And if we want to do the reduction with carbon, then the reaction will be Cu2S plus carbon is giving copper plus CS2. Now what will happen? The delta G for this reaction is not negative. Means when we couple these two reactions, the overall delta G comes out to be positive, and hence we can say that the reaction is not feasible. That is why extraction of copper from copper pyrites is more difficult. Next question is, write the chemical reaction taking place in the extraction of zinc from zinc blende. Now the answer is, zinc blende is zinc sulfide. So how we will extract zinc from zinc sulfide? So first step is concentration, and it can be done by froth flotation method. After that we will do roasting, that is we will convert the zinc sulfide into zinc oxide. After that we will do the reduction, zinc oxide in presence of carbon, this will act as a reducing agent, and at this temperature 1673 Kelvin, the zinc oxide, it will convert to zinc, and this is our crude metal or crude zinc, and this can be purified by electrolytic refining. So these are the steps, or these are the chemical reactions involved in the extraction of zinc from zinc blende. Next question is, state the role of silica in the metallurgy of copper. And the answer is very simple. As we have discussed the extraction of copper from copper oxide, so copper contains impurities of iron, and what will happen, this silica, it will combine with the iron oxide and slag will form. So this silica helps in removing the impurities of iron by making slag, that is FeO plus SiO2 is giving FeSiO3, which is nothing but slag. So the silica helps in removing the impurities of iron. Next question is, why copper mate is put in silica line converter? And the answer is, copper mate is Cu2S plus FeS. So when we put copper mate in silica, what will happen? First of all, this FeS, it will convert to FeO, and in presence of silica, this FeO will convert to FeSiO3, that is nothing but slag. So from here we can remove the impurities of iron. That is why we put copper mate in silica line converter. Next question is, what is the role of cryolite in the metallurgy of aluminium? So first role is that it makes alumina a good conductor of electricity. That is, the conductivity will increase when we add cryolite in the alumina. Next is, it lowers the melting point of the alumina. So these are the two roles of adding cryolite in the metallurgy of aluminium. Next question is, name the process from which Cl2 is obtained as a byproduct, and the answer is Dawes process. By Dawes process we can obtain our chlorine. And next is, what will happen if aqueous NaCl is subjected to electrolysis? So in aqueous NaCl we have Na positive, Cl negative, H positive and OH negative. So when we do the electrolysis of NaCl, at anode Cl2 gas will liberate, and at cathode what will happen, hydrogen gas will liberate, and in solution we have sodium hydroxide, and in solution sodium hydroxide is produced. Now question number 25th is, what is the role of graphite in the electrometallurgy of aluminium? Now these are the reactions taking place at anode and cathode in the electrometallurgy of aluminium. That is, at anode what will happen, this carbon plus O2 minus is giving CO plus 2 electron, and at cathode what will happen, Al plus 3 will accept 3 electron and reduce to aluminium. So the role of graphite in the electrometallurgy of aluminium is to prevent the liberation of O2 at the anode. That is, this carbon, it will prevent the liberation of oxygen at the anode, which may otherwise oxidize some of the liberated aluminium back to Al2, aluminium oxide. That is, if at anode carbon is not present, what will happen? Oxygen gas will liberate, and this oxygen gas, it will combine with this aluminium and converts to alumina, that is Al2O3. That is why this graphite, it prevents the liberation of oxygen at the anode, and therefore to prevent the formation of this Al2O3. That is why we are making graphite as an anode in the electrometallurgy of aluminium. So these are the questions which I gave you in lecture number 3. Thank you. Have a nice day.